Innovative Bear presents the HVAC Advantage, how AI booking engines add 20 to 100 extra qualified estimates every month. Chapter 1. The Hidden Leaks. Stealing your HVAC revenue. Mike did not hate the work. He liked pulling up to a house with no cold air and leaving with cold air flowing again. He liked seeing the relief on a customer's face when the system kicked on. He liked knowing that if he and his team showed up, the job would get done right. What he did not like was everything that happened around the work. It was the third week of July. The forecast for the next 7 days was high 90s every afternoon. On paper, this should have been the best stretch of the year for Summit Air and Heat. Instead, at about 7:42 p.m., Mike was sitting alone in his small office, staring at the phone system dashboard. The building was quiet. The shop lights in the back were off. The only sounds were the hum of the mini split in the office and the occasional ring of the main line. The phone rang. It rang again. Then, it rolled to voicemail. Summit Air and Heat. We will get back to you as soon as we can. The recording played. Mike knew how that story usually ended. Most of those callers were not waiting for a call back. They were already dialing the next company on their list. He opened the call log on the computer. Rows of calls filled the screen. Some were green for answered. Some were red for missed. He scrolled through the day with his mouse and started counting the red entries in his head. 1, 2, 3. He kept going. By the time he reached the bottom, he counted 9 missed calls for that day. 9 missed calls on one of the hottest days of the month. He felt it in his stomach. He thought about his ad account. He thought about the card charges that hit every month. Money going out. Calls coming in. And still, he was sitting here wondering how much business had just slipped away. He looked over at the whiteboard on the wall. A few weeks earlier, he had met with a marketing rep who walked him through impressions, click-through rates, cost per lead, and other line items. They had written goals on the board. More calls. More leads, more booked appointments. The good news was simple. The phone was ringing more than it had the year before. The bad news was also simple. A lot of those calls were going straight to voicemail. During the day, his dispatcher, Ashley, did everything she could. She answered calls. She checked email. She watched the chat widget on the website. She tried to keep the techs on schedule while also handling walk-ins and questions from the crew. But there were limits. When 2 lines rang at once and a tech was standing at her desk asking about a part, something had to give. Sometimes that meant a call dropped to voicemail. Sometimes it meant an email response got delayed until the next morning. Now, after hours, there was no buffer at all. If a call came in, it went straight to the recorded message. If someone filled out a web form, it sat in the inbox until Ashley logged in the next day. If someone sent a message through social media, there was a good chance no one on the team even saw it until hours or days later. Mike pulled his notebook closer and flipped back through recent days. He had started writing down a rough sense of how busy each day felt. He had notes like, "Phone's insane," "Ashley slammed," "Missed a few calls while in crawl space," and "No time to call everyone back." He tried to guess how many of those missed calls would have turned into real jobs. If half of those 9 callers needed at least a diagnostic, that was 4 or 5 visits. If even 2 turned into full system replacements, that was serious money, not imaginary money. Money that would have covered payroll, parts orders, and maybe even that extra truck he kept thinking about. He felt frustrated because he knew he was not lazy. His team was not lazy. They were out in attics, crawl spaces, and backyards in the heat while those calls were coming in. They were doing the work. The problem was not effort. The problem was capacity. They had hit a ceiling that had nothing to do with how many people wanted service and everything to do with how many conversations they could handle. The phone system was one place where the leak showed up. The website was another. Mike opened his email and filtered for web form submissions. Several unread ones sat there from the afternoon. One was from a customer who wrote, "A C not cooling. Available this evening or tomorrow morning." The timestamp was right in the middle of the day. at about 1:15 p.m. By the time Mike saw it, it was after 7 p.m. He knew from experience that even if he replied now, the chance that this homeowner was still waiting was low. He clicked over to the company's Facebook page. A notification indicator showed new messages. He opened the inbox. A few messages were from the last week. People asking about maintenance, pricing, and availability. Some had been answered. Others were still sitting there. He realized he did not even know how many potential customers reached out on social media and never heard anything back. If someone mentioned this in a meeting, he would nod and say, "Yeah, we should get better at that." Then everyone would go back to the day-to-day and nothing would change. Tonight, though, it all felt heavier. 9 missed calls, delayed replies to form fills, DMs that might as well not exist, all while ad spend kept running. He picked up his pen and wrote a heading in his notebook. Where are we leaking money? Underneath, he started a list. Missed calls. Voicemails never returned. Form fills answered next day. Social messages ignored. Old customer list never contacted. He stared at that list for a while. He realized the pattern. None of these items had anything to do with lead generation. They were all about what happened after a customer tried to contact the company. For years, every conversation he had with vendors and reps had been about getting more leads, more calls, more clicks, more traffic. But the calls on his screen told a different story. The leads were there. The company simply was not catching all of them. In simple terms, Summit Air and Heat did not have a lead problem. It had a capture and booking problem. It was like trying to fill a bucket that already had holes in the bottom. He kept pouring more water in at the top. The water at the top looked good. It made him feel like progress was happening. But the actual amount of water staying inside the bucket was flat. His business had its own version of that bucket. The top was advertising and referrals and word of mouth. The holes were missed phone calls, slow replies, and messages drifting in inboxes and apps. The frustrating part was that these leaks were invisible on normal reports. The ad dashboard showed calls. The phone company reported total call counts. The website showed form submissions. None of those tools showed how many people called once, got voicemail, and never tried again. None of them showed how many web leads cooled off when they got a reply the next morning instead of within a few minutes. None of them tracked the homeowner who sent a Facebook message on a Sunday evening and then moved on when no one responded. Mike thought about his staff. Could he ask Ashley to do more? Not really. She was already handling calls, dispatch, billing questions, and vendor calls. He had tried adding a part-time helper at the front desk once, but the training, management, and payroll load had made it feel like more stretch than help at the time. He thought about hiring someone just to handle phones and messages. That idea felt heavy too. Salary, training, turnover risk. The reality that one person still could not cover nights and weekends without burning out. Was he supposed to sit on his couch every evening with the shop line forwarded to his cell phone for the rest of his career? He already did that more often than he liked to admit. He leaned back in his chair and looked again at the call log. 9 red missed calls in one day. He flipped to the previous week. Different numbers, same story. When you stack those days together, the picture becomes clear. A few missed calls here, a few ignored messages there, a handful of leads who never get a reply while they are still actively looking. It adds up. Even if only a small part of those missed contacts would have turned into real jobs, the total revenue lost over a month, a season, or a year becomes serious. For a typical small shop, even a few additional installs each month can shift everything. One more system replacement a week, a few more higher margin jobs, the difference between feeling tight and feeling stable. Mike did not have exact numbers written down. Most owners do not, but he knew enough to feel uncomfortable. The leaks were real. He was not alone. If you run an HVAC company, you may see a similar pattern. The phones ring more in the busy season than your staff can handle. Your team does their best, but some calls hit voicemail. Some web forms sit in the inbox until someone has a moment. Social messages become something you will eventually get to. Rivli Shatternessen, 140 Rivli Weavely, 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 Weavely. You meet with marketing people. They talk about reach and impressions and new campaigns. You nod along because more leads sounds good. At the same time, some part of you knows that if you do not fix what happens inside the business when people reach out, you are just pouring more volume into the same leaking bucket. The leaks do not yell. They do not send you an invoice. They sit quietly in places that are easy to ignore. A missed call log, an unread message, a voice in your head saying, "We need to get better at follow-up." And then another day starts, and you forget. The first step in changing this is not a new ad campaign. It is seeing the leaks clearly. Think about your own operation for a moment. On a normal day, how many calls roll to voicemail during business hours? How many after-hours calls simply hear a recording and never get a live response? How quickly do you respond to web forms during the day? What about at night? Does anyone on your team actively watch your social messages? When was the last time you reactivated old leads or customers who have not heard from you in a year? You do not need exact counts to know whether you have a leak. A simple, honest look at these points usually tells the story. In most HVAC companies that are already doing at least low six figures in revenue, the problem is not a lack of people who want service. The problem is that a meaningful number of those people never reach a real conversation that ends with a time on the calendar. That gap between interest and booked appointment is where revenue leaks out. At this point, some owners decide to throw more people at the problem. Another office hire, extended hours, rotating after-hours phone duty. Sometimes that helps. Often it just pushes the ceiling a little higher while leaving the same underlying pattern in place. Humans get tired. Schedules change. Someone forgets to return a voicemail. Social messages still fall through the cracks because watching yet another inbox feels like extra work. Others try to ignore it and focus only on the numbers they can see. Monthly revenue, monthly ad spend, cost per call. As long as those numbers are not falling off a cliff, it is easy to push the leaks out of mind. A smaller number of owners start asking a different question. What would it look like if every single inbound call, text, and direct message was answered every time? Not answered in a week. Answered right away. Not, "We will call you back tomorrow." Answered with real help and a clear path to a booking. What would change if no one ever heard your voicemail message again? If every web form got a response within a few minutes instead of the next morning? If every social message from a real homeowner started a real conversation instead of sitting unseen? You do not need a complicated spreadsheet to imagine the impact. Even a modest increase in booked estimates each week reshapes your month. A few extra jobs during the slow shoulder seasons take pressure off. A more full calendar during the busy season lets you set your own pace instead of scrambling. This is where the idea of a dedicated system for capture and booking becomes more than a nice concept. It becomes a requirement if you want to grow without adding more stress. In simple terms, you have two parts of your front end. The part that generates interest. The part that turns that interest into a booked slot on the calendar. Most of the talk in the industry is about the first part. Ads, campaigns, offers, search rankings. The second part is quieter. Calls answered, messages handled, conversations guided into scheduled visits. An AI booking engine is one example of a system designed to focus almost entirely on that second part. It does not create leads out of thin air. It does not replace your team's skill in the field. It does not change the weather. What it does, when set up correctly, is simple to describe and powerful in effect. It answers. It asks the right questions. It books. It fills the gap between someone reached out and someone is on the schedule. In the next chapters, we will walk through what actually happens inside a homeowner's head when they need service, why speed and ease matter more than almost anything else in that moment, and how a system built to handle calls, texts, and messages around the clock can turn leaks into booked estimates. For now, it is enough to notice this. If your business already has people trying to reach you, The fastest path to more revenue may not be more noise at the top. It may be quietly closing the holes in the bottom. Chapter 2. Inside the Homeowner's Head. Why speed and ease win every time. Sarah did not plan on thinking about her air conditioning that night. It was a weekday evening, a little after 8:40 p.m. The sun was down, but the house still held the heat from the day. Her kids were in the living room arguing over what to watch. She was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher when she noticed it felt warmer than usual. She walked over to the thermostat. The display said 78. It was set on 72. She held her hand up to a vent. The air coming out felt more like room temperature than cool. She checked another vent. Same thing. She sighed. It had already been a long day at work. The idea of dealing with a broken system now was the last thing she wanted. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened a weather app. The forecast showed more heat for the rest of the week. No break coming. Waiting this out was not an option. She opened her browser and typed, AC repair near me. A list of HVAC companies appeared. Some had more reviews than others. Some had ads above their names. There were phone numbers, websites, and Open Now tags. She did not spend much time reading. She tapped the first company with decent reviews and hit the call button. The line rang. It rang again. Then a recorded voice greeted her. It thanked her for calling and said the office was closed. There was an option to leave a message. She listened for a second and then hung up. She did not want to talk to a voicemail. She wanted to talk to a person, or at least know when someone could come out. She tapped back and chose the next company on the list. The phone rang. This time, an automated system picked up and put her into a menu. She pressed 1 for service. Music started playing. After a while, she looked at the screen. The timer kept climbing. No one had answered yet. She hung up. Her kids asked if it was going to get hot. She said, I am working on it, even though nothing had happened yet. She scrolled again and saw another company. This one had a call button and a message button. She tapped call. A person answered on the second ring. The voice sounded awake and calm. They asked for her name, address, and a quick description of the issue. They did not ask for a long story. They just checked the basics and then said, we can get someone out to you tomorrow between 10 and 1, or if that does not work, between 2 and 5. Which works better? She picked the morning window. They confirmed the time, repeated her address, and told her she would get a text with the details. A few moments after she hung up, the message arrived. It had the company name, the date, the time window, and a simple reply to confirm or reschedule note. She set the phone down. The problem was not solved yet, but she felt better. The job was not done, but the decision was. The truth is that Sarah had barely looked at the company name. She did not compare long lists of services. She did not read every review. She did not research warranties or financing options. In that moment, she cared about one thing: who would respond and make it easy to book a time. The company that did that first got the job. If you talk to homeowners about situations like this, you will hear similar stories. When the house is hot or cold or something is leaking, their state of mind is simple. They are stressed. They are busy. They are looking for the fastest path from problem to someone is coming. They are not thinking like a marketing report. They are not thinking about funnels, campaigns, or lifetime value. They are not even loyal to a brand most of the time. They are loyal to the company that makes them feel like the issue will be handled. When people in this situation start reaching out, they often do what Sarah did. They contact more than one company. They might call the first business in the search results. Call a second if the first one does not pick up. Fill out a form on a website that looks decent. Send a message through Facebook or another social app. They are not married to one channel. They are trying several at once to see who gets back to them first. From the outside, each of these touch points looks like a separate lead. From the inside, it is one human who just wants help. The company that wins is rarely the one with the most polished website or the most clever slogan. It is the one that responds first with a clear next step. This is what people mean when they talk about speed to lead. It is just a simple idea. When someone reaches out, the first company to respond in a helpful way has a serious advantage. If one company calls back within 5 minutes and another calls back the next day, the conversation is usually over before the second one even starts. If one company replies to a form within a few minutes and another takes an afternoon, the homeowner's mind has already moved on. Even small gaps matter. If one company texts back quickly and another sends an email later that night, the one who made it easy wins. Most HVAC owners would agree with this in theory. The hard part is living it out in daily operations. During the day, your office may be doing everything it can. Phones ringing, walk-ins happening, texts calling in from the road, people asking about quotes, invoices, and schedules. In the middle of all that, a new lead comes in. Maybe it is a call. Maybe it is a form. Maybe it is a direct message on a social page. If your staff is tied up, that new contact waits. The intention is to get back to it soon. You know you are supposed to, and you probably will. Just not always in those first crucial minutes. In the evening, the gap is even wider. Many companies let calls go to voicemail after hours. Some have answering services that take messages. Forms still go into inboxes that no one checks until the next morning. Social messages may sit for days because they do not show up in a place the team is trained to watch. From the homeowner's view, the clock is ticking. They do not see your staff working hard on other things. They see silence. So they move on. When you look at this from the inside of your company, it can feel like a staffing problem or a customer problem. We need more people in the office. People do not pick up when we call them back. From the homeowner's side, it is simpler. I reached out. They did not get back to me. I went with someone else. This is why the first response and the ease of booking matter so much. The first company that makes scheduling simple often wins the entire job. They do not have to be perfect. They just have to answer. They have to give a clear option. They have to send something that feels like a solid plan instead of a vague promise to get back to you. The challenge for HVAC companies is that this level of speed and consistency is hard to deliver with people alone. Office staff are human. They get tired. They get sick. They take vacations. They work certain hours. They can only handle a few conversations at once. When things get busy, they prioritize the calls in front of them and the techs who need help. That is normal. But from the point of view of lead capture, every delay adds up. Now think about what would need to be true for your business to respond to every call, text, and direct message quickly, day and night, without burning out your team. You would need something that answers when a homeowner calls, even if your staff is busy or the office is closed. Responds when a form is filled out, not hours later. Replies when someone sends a message on social media. Asks a few simple questions to understand what they need. Offers clear time slots instead of vague, "we will get back to you." Guides them to a confirmed booking on your calendar. In other words, you would need a system that treats every inbound contact as a priority and turns it into a conversation and then into a scheduled visit. Later in this book, we will talk about how an AI booking engine can play that role. For now, it is enough to understand the behavior it needs to support. It is not about making your brand louder. It is about making your response faster and the path to booking easier. To see how much difference this can make, consider Northern Comfort Heating and Air. When Carlos started that company, he had the same habits most owners have. He focused on getting the phone to ring. He worked with different marketing partners. He watched his cost per lead and his monthly revenue. If the revenue number went down, he pushed for more leads. At first, that worked. As long as the company was small, the office could handle the volume. Calls were answered most of the time. Form fills were answered within a few hours. Social messages were light. As Northern Comfort grew, new patterns emerged. Carlos added more techs and took on more jobs. The office stayed roughly the same size. During busy months, the phones were hectic. Form fills sometimes waited until the end of the day. Social messages were a complete blind spot. Carlos started to notice something in his reports. Lead volume was strong. Ads were producing contacts, but the number of booked estimates was not keeping pace. He dug in and realized the gap was not at the top of the funnel. It was in the middle. Many contacts never made it to a real conversation. When he and his team eventually installed a dedicated booking system that could answer calls and messages promptly and move people to clear time slots, something interesting happened. They did not change their ad spend much. They did not expand into a brand new market. They did not suddenly offer a huge discount. What changed was simple. More of the people who already reached out actually got a response and got onto the schedule. Before this shift, they might have seen something like this in a typical month. Many contacts from calls, forms, and messages. A smaller portion turned into actual conversations with a human. An even smaller portion turned into booked estimates. After the system was in place, with faster replies and clearer booking paths, the number of contacts stayed close to the same. The number of conversations went up. The number of booked estimates went up. The show rate for those estimates improved because reminder messages went out consistently. Nothing magical happened. They just stopped dropping as many balls during the crucial first few minutes and hours after someone reached out. This is where speed and ease show their real value. If you picture a homeowner like Sarah, it is easy to see why. She does not keep a careful spreadsheet of every company she contacts. She does not sit there debating small differences in price points for very long. She is glad to save money, but what she wants in that first moment is a simple answer to a simple question. Who can actually help me, and when? When one company answers that question quickly and gives her a clear time, the search ends. Any other company that calls her later is too late. They may never even know they missed a chance. From their perspective, she is not reachable or went cold. From her perspective, she already has someone coming out. As an HVAC owner, you can lean into this reality or ignore it. If you ignore it, you may keep increasing your marketing spend, refining your branding, and working on your messaging, while the same quiet leaks continue. If you lean into it, you start asking different questions. How fast do we actually respond to new contacts right now? How easy is it for a homeowner to go from "I found you" to "I have a time on the calendar"? How often do we leave people waiting when we are busy? How many of those people move on to someone else because of that wait? When you start measuring these points, even in simple notes, you often see the same pattern that Northern Comfort and many other companies see. You do not necessarily need more people who want work done. There are already many of those. You need more of those people to get a fast, clear, easy path to a booked visit with you. A system that responds right away on calls, texts, and direct messages, and then guides homeowners to confirmed time slots, exists to serve that purpose. Designing and maintaining that kind of system is its own discipline. It involves call logic, message flows, qualification rules, and calendar rules that match how your business actually runs. Many owners choose to work with specialists for this reason. They want the outcome of, "We respond fast and book more," without becoming full-time architects of complex flows. You do not need to understand every technical detail to see the payoff. Imagine, in your own business, what would change if almost every Sarah who reached out in a moment of need heard a real response quickly and ended that interaction with a confirmed time on your schedule? If the company that responds first and makes it easiest wins, what would it look like if your business almost never dropped the ball again? Chapter 3. What an AI booking engine really is. In plain English, John stared at the monitor and rubbed his forehead. It was just after 9:30 in the morning at Precision Climate. The phones were already busy. A line of tabs was open on his screen. Email, the CRM, a calendar, a browser with 3 different software tools logged in. On his desk, a brochure from some vendor lay half open. Big letters on the front said, "AI Automation for Home Services." There were diagrams, buzzwords, and screenshots of charts. John picked it up, glanced at it again, and set it back down. He did not care about automation buzzwords. He cared about 2 things. Are the phones handled? Is the calendar full of jobs we actually want? He took a call, scheduled a maintenance visit, and put a tech on the board. Before he could catch his breath, Another line rang. At the same time, an email notification popped up from the website and a message icon lit up for the company's Facebook page. He clicked on the email first. A homeowner had filled out a form 30 minutes earlier asking for a quote on a system changeout. He winced. 30 minutes was not terrible, but he knew that when people were shopping, they often reached out to more than one company. The phone kept ringing. He let it roll to another staff member and opened the Facebook page. There was a message from last night, someone asking, "Do you do ductless installs in my area?" Another from early that morning. "Furnace, making a weird noise. Can someone come this week?" He felt that familiar pressure. There was no lack of interest. People were trying to contact them from every direction. Calls, emails, form fills, social messages. The problem was keeping up. A week earlier, the owner, Dan, had come back from a conference. He was excited about an idea they had talked about there. He said something like, "We need an AI booking system that just handles this stuff." John nodded, but when he heard AI, his mind went to robots and complicated dashboards. He pictured yet another platform that would need logins, setup, and training. Another thing that people would blame him for if it did not work right. So when the vendor brochure showed up on his desk in a sample packet, he skimmed it and then pushed it aside. It felt like more noise. Now, as he watched calls and messages stack up, he picked it up again. He looked at the phrase AI booking engine and tried to translate it into something that mattered to his day. What does that actually mean? What would it actually do? If you have had a similar reaction to the phrase AI booking engine, you are not alone. A lot of owners and managers hear it and picture something vague. They know it has something to do with automation and maybe chat. They may have seen bots on websites that feel clunky. They might have tried a smart answering feature in the past that did not work well. Before we go any further in this book, it is important to strip away the hype and put this idea into plain language. An AI booking engine, at least in the way we are using the phrase here, is not a robot in your office. It is not a random chatbot pasted on your site. It is a system that does three simple things very well. It answers people when they reach out. It asks a few key questions to understand what they need and whether they are a fit. It books real appointments on your calendar and makes sure people show up. That is it. All the components, tools, and logic exist to serve those simple outcomes. From the homeowner's point of view, it looks like this. They call, and someone answers. They fill out a form, and they get a quick text. They send a message on social, and they get a human-style reply. They are offered clear times, and they pick one. They get reminders, and it feels like the company is on top of things. From your staff's point of view, it looks like this. Fewer voicemails, fewer "sorry we missed your call" situations, fewer people complaining that no one got back to them, more booked jobs appearing on the calendar without as much manual back and forth. To make that happen, a booking engine has to sit across a few major areas of your communication. First, there is call answering and qualification around the clock. In a normal setup, calls come in during the day, and your team answers as many as they can. After hours, calls go to voicemail or an answering service. With a proper engine, you have a layer that can pick up calls, greet the caller, and ask basic questions, even when staff cannot. It does not need to solve every possible issue. It needs to know enough to figure out who is calling, where they are, what the basic problem is, how soon they need someone. Then it either books a time directly or passes that information into your process so the right next step can happen. Second, there is two-way texting that handles leads, follow-ups, and reschedules. If someone fills out a web form asking for service, the engine can send a text quickly instead of waiting for someone to open email. If someone calls and hangs up before talking to a person, the engine can send a message and open a conversation. The same layer can handle simple back and forth around rescheduling, confirming, and getting quick answers, so your staff is not tied up playing phone tag over basic details. Third, there is social message handling. People are used to sending quick messages through Facebook, Instagram, and other platforms. Many owners know there is activity there, but no one really owns it. The messages sit until someone remembers to log in and check. A booking engine can treat those messages like any other contact. It can reply, ask basic questions, and invite the person into a more structured channel, usually text, where it is easier to book. Fourth, there is the calendar and confirmation layer. This is where the engine connects what it learned in the conversation to your actual availability. It has to understand which time slots are open, what types of jobs fit into which slots, which techs or crews can be booked for which kinds of work. It then offers times that make sense, confirms the choice, and writes it onto the calendar that your team uses. After that, it can send simple reminders and handle basic rescheduling without requiring a person to pick up the phone for every change. Finally, there is visibility. If all this is happening in a black box, it does not help you run a better business. A good engine will let you see, in simple terms, how many people reached out, turned into real conversations, ended up on the calendar, actually opened the door when your tech arrived, turned into real revenue. You do not need fancy graphs. You need to see whether the system is catching more of the demand that is already coming in. For John at Precision Climate, putting it in these terms changed how he looked at the idea. He did not care what anyone called it. AI, automation, smart routing. None of that mattered by itself. What mattered was that calls would be answered. Even when the office was slammed, form fills would get a quick response, not sit in an inbox. Social messages would not be forgotten for days. The calendar would fill with jobs without him having to manually touch every interaction. To see how this plays out in the real world, imagine a simple day with a booking engine in place. At 8:15 in the morning, a new customer calls about a no-cool issue. The engine answers right away. It gathers name, address, and a short description, checks the area, and sees that this is within your service zone. It knows, based on rules you have set, that this kind of call should be booked as a same-day or next-day service visit if at all possible. It sees open slots that match those rules. It offers two options. The customer picks one. The engine drops the job on the calendar and triggers a confirmation message. Later that morning, someone fills out a form on your site asking for a quote on a system replacement. Instead of waiting for someone in the office to see the email, the engine sends a text within a few minutes. The conversation might look like, "Hi, this is Precision Climate. We received your request for a quote. Are you available for a visit this week so we can take a look and give you options?" If they reply yes, the engine can ask a quick follow-up question, then offer time windows that match your process for estimates. Once they choose, it places an estimate visit on the calendar and sends them a confirmation. In the afternoon, someone sends a message through your Facebook page asking, "Do you work in this zip code? And do you install heat pumps?" The engine sees the message, checks the zip code, checks your service map, and responds, "Yes, we do serve your area, and we do install heat pumps. Would you like to schedule a visit so we can look at your home and give you a quote? Quote, in quote and quote, quote." From there, it can move them into a booked estimate, just like it did for the web form. Later in the week, a customer with a booked job needs to reschedule. Instead of leaving a voicemail and waiting for a callback, they can reply to their reminder message. The engine sees the reply, offers new times allowed by your rules, and updates the calendar. All of these interactions rely on the same core idea. The system is always ready to pick up the conversation, ask a few key questions, and push toward a clear next step. In companies without a setup like this, the same situations often unfold in a less clean way. The morning emergency call might hit voicemail because the office staff is already on another line. By the time someone listens and calls back, the homeowner has already booked someone else. The form fill might sit in an inbox until after lunch. When someone finally reaches out, the homeowner barely remembers which company that form was for. The social message might not get a reply until a day later when someone from the team happens to log into the page. At that point, the person has moved on. The reschedule might require a phone call, a game of tag, and manual changes on the board. None of this is because you or your team do not care. It is simply that human capacity runs out. There are only so many calls and messages a small team can handle in real time. An AI booking engine gives you a way to extend that capacity without hiring multiple full-time people to sit by the phone and watch every inbox all day and evening. It is important to repeat this point. The idea is simple. The actual build and tuning behind it are not. To get this right, someone has to map out how calls, texts, and messages should flow. Write and adjust the questions that the system asks. Encode which areas you serve and which you do not. Define which jobs are worth booking and which should be filtered out. Align the booking logic with your real calendar and text schedule. Watch what happens after launch and refine based on real cases. If you skip those steps, you end up with something that feels like every bad chatbot you have tried before. The system says the wrong things. It books the wrong jobs. It confuses your customers. Your staff gets annoyed. Eventually, someone turns it off. If you handle those steps well, you end up with a quiet engine in the background that most people do not think about day to day. They just see fuller calendars, fewer missed calls, and more steady revenue. Most HVAC owners are fully capable of understanding the concepts in this chapter. Many could, if they wanted to, spend months learning the tools and building their own setup. The real question is whether that is the best use of their time. Most owners do not want to become workflow engineers. They want to run a solid company, take care of customers, grow, and have a life outside work. That is why this kind of system is often built and maintained by specialists who live in this world every day. In the chapters ahead, we will look at what happens to estimate counts when you go from answer what we can to almost everything gets caught and booked, and walk through realistic scenarios for shops of different sizes. For now, you can think of an AI booking engine as a simple idea, a single, always-on front end for your calls, texts, and messages that knows how to talk to your customers, qualify them, and place them into real-time slots on your calendar so your techs can do what they do best. Chapter 4. From missed calls to 20 to 100 more estimates. Realistic scenarios. On a Monday morning at Summit Air and Heat, Mike stood over the whiteboard in his small office. There were 3 trucks on the road, 2 techs already out on no heat calls, and the phones had started ringing before 8 in the morning. The week was already packed with maintenance visits and a few system change-out estimates. Still, when Mike looked at the whiteboard, he felt the same frustration he had felt for the past few seasons. It never felt like enough. He knew from his bookkeeping that they were getting by. They were not going under. But he also knew how many calls they missed when the phone lines stacked up. He knew that web form submissions sometimes sat in the inbox until the next day. He knew that his niece, who helped part-time in the office, did not always have time to check the Facebook messages. The whiteboard told one story. A busy shop, a full week, enough to feel stressed. The phone logs told another story. A trail of calls that went to voicemail and never turned into jobs. At the same time, across town, John at Precision Climate was watching a different set of numbers on his screen. He had a rough sense of how many estimates they did in a month. He could pull up reports and see that number. He could also see how much they were spending on marketing, ads, mailers, online campaigns. But when he tried to answer a simple question out of all the people who try to reach us, how many actually end up with a booked estimate, he did not have a clear answer. It felt like a lot of effort for results that should have been better. In a nearby city, Carlos at Northern Comfort Heating and Air looked at an even bigger picture. He had multiple locations, more techs, and more trucks. He also had more moving parts, calls coming into different numbers, leads from different campaigns, messages on multiple pages. He had grown, but the growth felt messy. He suspected they were leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. In this chapter, we are going to make the idea of 20 to 100 more qualified estimates per month real and believable by walking through how 3 different types of HVAC companies can get there without adding brand new lead sources. We are not going to lean on hype. We are going to stick with simple, realistic scenarios. Summit Air and Heat is a small shop. Mike runs 3 trucks, with himself still in the field part of the time. His estimate volume before putting any sort of booking engine in place looked roughly like this. In an average month, he would see around a dozen new estimates. Some came from people who called in. Some came from word of mouth. Some came from ads he was running. It was a mix. Out of those roughly 12 estimates, he might close about half into installs or bigger repair jobs. That means maybe 6 meaningful projects in a month coming out of his estimate pipeline. Not bad, but not what it could be. Underneath that number, several things were happening. On a typical week, several calls went to voicemail when his single office person was already on the line. A few form fills came in after hours and did not get a response until late the next morning. Social messages sat unseen for a day or two until someone remembered to log in. No one was regularly following up with people who had called once and not booked yet. The dozen estimates he did see each month were the people who made it through all of that friction and still stuck around. When he added a proper booking system, one that caught calls, texts, and messages and guided them into real-time slots, the top line of lead flow did not suddenly double. His market did not change overnight. What changed was how much of that existing flow got captured and turned into actual appointments. Here is what that looked like in practice. First, far fewer calls went to voicemail. Even when the office was busy, an always-on layer answered, gathered basic info, and could offer times based on his rules. Second, every web form got a quick text. People did not feel like they had tossed a message into a void. They heard back, confirmed that someone was on it, and were given simple choices for visit windows. Third, those casual, "Do you service my area" messages on social were seen and answered. And more importantly, they were steered toward booked visits. Fourth, people who showed interest but did not book right away were not forgotten. They received simple, polite nudges that brought some of them back into the pipeline. Without increasing ad spend, a few things happened over the next couple of months. That rough 12 estimate count started to move. In a solid month, it became normal to see around 20 to 25 estimates. As the system was tuned and more of the leaks were closed, months with around 30 or a little more became possible. The close rate did not have to improve dramatically for the revenue picture to change. If Mike still closed around half of his estimates, moving from 12 to 30 estimates in a month meant that instead of 6 projects, he might now see around 15. Those extra projects came from people who would have otherwise fallen through the cracks, not from some brand new marketing gamble. Nothing magical happened. The shop simply stopped losing as many chances between first contact and booked visit. Precision Climate is a mid-size company. More techs, more office staff, more calls. Before putting any serious booking engine in place, John saw something like this. In an average month, they were doing somewhere in the mid-30s for estimates. Some months dipped, some months climbed. But that was the general range. The office felt busy. The schedule felt full. But they were spending a meaningful amount on ads and partnerships. And he could tell that the estimates were not keeping up with what the phone and message volume suggested. He noticed patterns like these. During peak hours, calls would queue. If a caller hung up instead of waiting, no one had the bandwidth to chase every missed call. Form fills often came in batches. A few were answered quickly. Others were delayed when the office got slammed. Facebook and Instagram had grown as channels, but no one owned them. Replies would be hit or miss. When someone called about a quote, but was not sure on timing, that lead often ended without any structured follow-up. On paper, 30-something estimates might look decent. In reality, with the amount of interest they were getting, there was room for more. Once an AI-driven booking engine was added to the front end of their communication, several things shifted. Every incoming call had coverage. If no one in the office could grab it, the system would. Callers were greeted, qualified, and, when appropriate, offered visit windows that matched real availability. Every form fill received a fast text, sometimes within minutes. That speed alone moved more people from thinking about it to, "Sure, let us book a time." Social messages stopped aging in silence. A homeowner asking in the evening whether they worked in a certain zip code could get an answer and a booking path without waiting until the next day. People who showed interest but did not commit that same moment were entered into simple, respectful follow-up conversations. Over several weeks, the effect stacked. If they had roughly 35 estimates in a month before, it was not a leap to see that number reach around 50 once the leaks narrowed. With more tuning, crossing into the low 60s or a little higher became normal in strong months. Again, the math is plain. Take a company that closes only a portion of its estimates into real jobs. If you keep that close rate roughly the same, but almost double the number of booked estimates, your revenue climbs. You did not double your ad budget. You did not launch a dozen new campaigns. You simply stopped wasting as much of the demand you already had. The staff also felt the difference. Instead of rushing to catch every missed contact manually, they saw more jobs appear on the calendar already qualified. They could spend more time on higher-value conversations and less time playing catch-up. Northern Comfort Heating and Air plays in a different space. Carlos has multiple locations, more techs, and more lead sources feeding into the business. Before bringing in an AI booking engine, his monthly estimate count hovered in the ballpark of around 60. Some months climbed higher, some dipped. With multiple offices and a broader territory, the volume was spread across different teams. The complexity introduced a new kind of leak. Each location had its own way of handling calls. Some were better than others at keeping up. Some leaned on voicemail more. Some checked social more often. Some were stricter about following up with people who had inquired about estimates. From a distance, the business looked successful. Trucks were moving. Jobs were being done. Revenue was not stagnant. But when Carlos stepped back and asked, if all of our calls, form fills, and messages were handled in a consistent, fast, and structured way, how many more estimates would we be doing? He knew the answer was a lot more than 60. Rolling out a booking engine in his world meant doing three main things. First, putting a consistent answer layer across all locations, so no matter which number someone called, they were greeted, qualified, and steered into the same standard process. Second, making sure that web leads and social messages fed into a central conversation layer that could handle volume from every city. Third, aligning calendars and availability rules so that each location's estimate slots could be offered accurately without double booking or confusion. Once that was in place and tuned, the effect was noticeable. Estimate counts moved from the 60s toward the 80s without adding a single new marketing channel. As the system matured and more of the smaller leaks between campaigns and booking were caught, months with around 100 or even a bit more estimates across the locations became realistic. For Carlos, the impact was not just in the top-line numbers. With more predictable and higher estimate volume, he could plan hiring more confidently, knowing what kind of install workload was coming. He could make better decisions about which markets to expand into next. He could negotiate marketing contracts with more leverage because he could see exactly how many estimates came from each source and how well they were being captured. The booking engine did not create demand out of thin air. It stopped demand from being wasted. If we step back from the stories of Mike, John, and Carlos, the pattern is straightforward. Most HVAC companies already have people trying to contact them through multiple channels: calls, texts, form submissions, social messages. Without a structured booking engine, a portion of that contact turns into booked estimates. The rest leaks away at different points. Calls that go to voicemail and never get returned in time. Form fills that sit too long. Social messages that never get seen. Warm conversations that never receive a clear invite to book. When you plug those leaks, your estimate count climbs, even if your lead count stays similar. For a small shop, that might mean moving from something like a dozen estimates to around 30 per month. For a mid-sized company, that might mean going from the mid-30s to around 60 or a bit more. For a multi-location operation, that might mean shifting from around 60 to around 100 or higher. Those ranges are the 20 to 100 more we keep mentioning. They are not magic. They are the result of catching more of what you are already paying for and already working hard to attract. You might look at these scenarios and think that in theory you could do this if everyone was perfect. If your office staff never had a bad day. If no one ever got sick or went on vacation. If every message was opened right away. If every missed call got a quick follow-up. In the real world, people get busy. Phones stack up. Even with the best intentions, some things slip. An AI booking engine does not replace care or service. It gives you a way to keep the basic mechanics of capture and booking solid, even when human bandwidth is stretched. It is also not a single switch you flip without thought. The stories in this chapter gloss over a lot of complexity on purpose. Behind each of these changes, someone had to map flows, define rules, write and refine language, align calendars, and keep an eye on what was happening week by week. That work is why, for many owners, the fastest path to 20 to 100 more qualified estimates is not trying to build every piece themselves, but working with people who design these systems all the time and already know the patterns, the edge cases, and the common failure points. If you see your own company in Mike's whiteboard, John's reports, or Carlos's multi-location tangle, you already know there is more potential sitting inside your existing lead flow. The right booking engine can turn that potential into real numbers on your estimate board. If you want to explore what that would look like for your company and see how much ground you could gain by tightening up your capture and booking process with a specialist at your side, you can schedule a time with our team here. https secured innovativebear.com/book-a-call-page. Chapter 5. The 24/7 Front Desk. Calls, texts, and DMs answered automatically. By 8:30 in the morning, Precision Climate already felt behind. The first tech had called in from the road to say traffic was worse than usual. Another tech was in the shop waiting on a part that had not arrived yet. The phones were already ringing in bursts. John sat at his desk with the main phone pressed to his ear, the line lights flashing. Behind him, the printer spit out a work order that he did not have a free hand to grab. A homeowner stood at the counter asking about a maintenance plan. At the same time, another tech stepped into the office doorway to ask about a part number. The phones did not care. One line was an older customer whose heat had gone out overnight. Another was a new homeowner who had found them online and wanted a quote on a replacement system. A third line flashed as someone tried to call in a second time after hitting voicemail earlier. John did what any good operations manager would do. He tried to move fast. He put one caller on hold, took down an address from another, glanced at the counter to tell the walk-in that he would be right there, and signaled to the tech to give him a minute. While he was doing that, a new web form came through the website with a message about rising power bills and concern about the age of an air conditioner. The email landed in the general inbox and joined a pile of messages from the night before. No one would see it until after lunch. On the company Facebook page, a message sat unread from the evening before. The homeowner had sent, "Do you work in my neighborhood?" Then followed it with, "We might need a new system soon." There was no reply yet. By 9:15 in the morning, several calls had gone to voicemail. A few people left messages. A few hung up and tried another company. The walk-in finally got an answer. The tech with the part question had to wait until John could get off the phone. If you have spent any time in an HVAC office during a busy season, none of this feels unusual. There are calls, customers in front of you, techs needing help, suppliers calling back, emails coming in, and messages on different platforms. Everyone is working hard. Still, it feels like you are losing ground. On the surface, the problem looks like a staffing issue. You might think, if we just had one more person up front, we could keep up. But even with more staff, the pattern tends to repeat in a different way. People still get busy at the same time. Calls and messages still bunch together. After hours and weekends still exist. No one wants to sit in front of a computer all night watching the inbox. This is where the idea of a 24/7 front desk comes in. Not a person who never sleeps. A layer in front of your communication channels that can answer, respond, and move people toward booked visits even when your team is tied up or not in the building. To see what this changes, take that same day at Precision Climate and imagine it with an AI booking engine in place. The phones start ringing around 8:30 in the morning again. John still has a tech at the counter, a walk-in, and an email from a supplier. The difference now is that when all of the human lines are busy, Calls do not simply roll to a cold voicemail greeting. The AI layer can pick up, greet the caller in a way that matches the company's tone, and ask basic questions. It can find out whether this is heat out, no cool, maintenance, or someone asking about a quote. It can capture a name, address, and best contact number. It can offer available visit windows that fit the rules John has set. If John or another team member is free, they can still answer live and take the call as usual. The engine is there to catch the overflow, not to push the staff aside. The web form that comes in from the homeowner worried about power bills does not sit in the inbox until after lunch. Within a short window, that person receives a text that acknowledges their message, asks one or two quick questions, and offers a couple of possible time windows for a tech to come out. That fast response alone changes the way the homeowner feels. They do not have to think, "I wonder if anyone saw this." Instead, they are already in a conversation that is moving toward a confirmed visit. On Facebook, that message from the person asking about the neighborhood does not sit unseen until someone remembers to log in. The AI engine is watching that channel and can respond in simple terms. It can say that yes, the company does work in that area. It can ask whether they are looking for a repair, a quote, or just information. It can then invite them to pick a time for someone to come out and take a look. In other words, the random "Do you work here" message becomes the start of a real booking path instead of a missed chance. The same pattern applies across every channel. Calls come in. If your staff picks up, great. If not, the system can answer, ask basic questions, and, when appropriate, put a real visit on the calendar within the rules you have set. Texts come in from form fills, missed calls, or people who simply prefer texting. The system can reply quickly, give clear options, and keep the conversation going until there is a confirmed time or a clear next step. Social DMs arrive at any hour. The system can see them, respond, and move them toward an appointment without waiting for the next time someone from your team logs in. This is not about making things feel robotic. Done well, it is about making sure that no matter how busy the day is inside your office, the person on the other end of the phone or screen feels like someone is there and paying attention. Think about what evenings and weekends are like now. Many shops let calls roll to voicemail after a certain time. Some have an answering service, but those services usually just take a message and promise a call back. If a homeowner's system fails at 7:30 p.m. on a hot night, and they call and only reach a generic recording, they will likely hang up and call the next number in the search results. When an AI booking engine is in place, that after-hours call can still be answered. The caller can hear a clear greeting. The system can gather key details, confirm whether this is an emergency or a standard call, and, based on your rules, either offer a soonest available window or let them know what will happen next. Even if you do not offer true 24-hour emergency service, there is a big difference between leaving someone with a cold recording and giving them a clear path to the next step. Texts and DMs that come in during the evening can also get a quick response instead of sitting all night. From the homeowner's point of view, this feels like a company that is on top of things. From your team's point of view, it means you start the next morning with more of those contacts already moved forward instead of having to dig out from a pile. The impact on your office staff is also worth spelling out. At Precision Climate, once the engine was up and running, John noticed a shift over several weeks. On heavy days, they still had busy stretches. Phones still rang. Techs still needed parts and answers. Walk-ins still happened. The difference was in the type of workload. Instead of having to race to answer every single ring in real time with the fear that if they missed a call it was gone forever, the team could focus more on higher value conversations. They knew that if a second or third line came in while they were already helping someone, the engine would pick it up, gather the basics, and even offer some time options. They could then follow up as needed without starting from zero. They also saw fewer random voicemails with no context and more structured information when they did need to call someone back. That cut down on back and forth and on the phone tag that eats time. This does not mean no one has to answer phones anymore. It means the human staff can do their jobs without feeling like they are constantly in a losing race against the ring. For small shops like Summit Air and Heat, The same pattern plays out in a scaled-down way. Mike's office often had just one person up front. That person handled calls, took payments, checked in texts, and dealt with whatever else came up. With the AI layer in place, when that person stepped away from the desk or focused on a customer in front of them, calls did not just fall into a black hole. The system could answer, say that the company was helping another customer at the moment, gather the key details, and either book a time or promise a follow-up. In practice, this meant that the office person could walk away from the desk for a few minutes without the constant worry of, what if a big job just called and I missed it? For multi-location setups, like Northern Comfort Heating and Air, the benefit was spread across several sites. Before, some locations were stronger at answering calls and watching messages than others. Some had staff who were good with social media. Others did not touch it much. Some were good with following up on form fills. Others let the inbox sit. Once the engine sat in front of all the main channels, every location had the same consistent basic coverage. Calls, texts, and DMs did not depend as heavily on the habits of one office person in one building. That alone raised the floor on how responsive the company felt in every market. This kind of 24/7 front desk also protects your own time as an owner or manager. Many owners find themselves checking messages late at night, calling people back on weekends, or trying to keep an eye on social themselves because they do not trust that anyone else is watching. That pattern is not sustainable. When you know that every main channel is covered with a clear, simple process, it becomes easier to set boundaries. You can still review what is happening. You can still jump in on the most important cases. You do not have to personally guard the phone or inbox at all hours. It is easy to underestimate how much mental load this removes. To be clear, none of this happens by accident. For an AI booking engine to handle calls, texts, and DMs in a way that fits your business, someone has to define how the greeting should sound, what questions to ask, how to tell one type of job from another, which areas you serve, and what should happen outside normal hours. Someone has to connect the dots between your calendars and the rules the system uses so that it does not overbook or offer times that are not realistic. Someone has to keep an eye on the way homeowners respond and tune the language so that it stays simple and clear. That is why most owners, when they understand what a 24/7 front desk really means, decide that they would rather have specialists design and maintain that system than try to become part-time automation architects themselves. The core idea is simple. If every call, text, and DM is greeted, understood, and moved toward a booking in a consistent way, you stop wasting chances. If that coverage exists around the clock, the company feels responsive all the time, not just when someone is sitting at the front desk. The value is in the details, how your voice comes across, how the questions are phrased, how the rules are set, how the edge cases are handled, how the office staff works with the system instead of feeling like they are fighting it. For you, the owner or manager, the important question is not, can this be done? But, what would it feel like if this were already working in my business? Picture a busy day at your own shop. Phones ringing, texts in and out, a few walk-ins, a parts issue, a small problem on a job that needs attention. Now picture that on that same day, every call that overflows, every form that comes in, and every message on your main social channels is being answered, guided, and booked according to the rules you have set, even when no one is free for a moment. The schedule fills in a steady way. Fewer people slip away. Fewer leads are lost in the noise of the day. That is what a true 24/7 front desk looks like in practice. It is not dramatic. It is not flashy. It is a quiet, steady layer that lets your team breathe while making your company look sharp to every homeowner who reaches out. Chapter 6. From Conversation to Calendar. How Jobs Get Booked and Show Up. Carlos liked to look at the calendar on Monday mornings. Before the AI booking engine, that check always felt a little uneasy. Some days were packed. Some days had odd gaps. A few days looked fine on paper, then fell apart when people canceled or never opened the door. On this Monday, a few weeks after turning the engine on at Northern Comfort Heating and Air, the calendar looked different. It was not perfect. There were still open spots. There were still notes about parts and follow-up work. But the pattern was steady. Each day had a clear line of booked visits. The gaps were smaller. The emergency windows were not overrun. Carlos scrolled back through the previous week. He saw visit after visit marked as completed. Next to many of them, the note showed that the first contact had not been a phone call to the main line. Some had started from a missed call that turned into a text. Some had started from a web form. Some had started from a Facebook message asking a short question. He clicked into one job from Wednesday. The homeowner had first reached out late at night through the website. They had written that the upstairs stayed warm even when the system ran. The engine had sent a quick message back, asked a couple of simple questions, and offered a few appointment windows. The next morning, before anyone on the team had opened the inbox, the homeowner had already picked a time. The job was sitting on the schedule, waiting for a tech. Carlos moved to another job on the calendar. This one had started from a call that came in during a busy afternoon. The office lines were tied up. The engine picked up, greeted the caller, and walked through the basics. By the time a staff member saw it, the person had already been qualified and slotted into an open visit window that fit their area. Carlos realized that, for many of the jobs on the board, there had not been much back and forth. There had been a clear path from first contact to confirmed visit. That was new. In the past, a lot of their conversations never turned into actual bookings. Someone would call, ask a few questions, say they needed to check their schedule, and hang up. Someone would fill out a form and then miss the call back. Someone would send a message on social and never reply when the office finally answered hours later. Even when they did book, the process could be messy. A staff member would go back and forth with the homeowner about days and times. They would say, "Let me check with the techs," and call you back. They might forget to confirm the appointment the day before. The homeowner might forget they had booked at all. A lot of revenue was hiding in that space between "we talked" and "we actually showed up at the door." The AI booking engine changed that by treating the whole path as one connected flow instead of a series of separate tasks. First, there was the initial contact. Someone calls, sends a text, fills a form, or sends a DM. Before, what happened next depended on who was free in the office, what time of day it was, and how busy things were. Now, the engine could step in right away. It could respond, greet them in a friendly way that fit the brand, and ask simple questions that mattered for the job. Things like where they lived, what type of issue they were having, and how soon they needed help. Second, there was qualification. For Northern Comfort, not every call made sense as a full diagnostic visit. Some people were outside their service area. Some had questions that belonged more to a quick estimate. Some were just price shopping with no real intent. In the past, those details came out in a scattered way. Each office person did things a little differently. Some dug in. Some rushed. Some booked anything that moved. With the engine in place, the basic qualification steps were always covered. The system could check whether the address was inside their normal routes. It could tell the difference between no heat, no cool, system making noise, and we are thinking about replacing this unit. It could flag anything that did not fit for a human to review. This meant the calendar slowly shifted toward more of the right jobs in the right areas. Third, there was the actual booking. This was where most of the friction lived before. A homeowner would say, "We are free in the afternoon," and the office would say, "Let me see what we have," and call you back. Or someone would offer a time. The homeowner would say it did not work, and the call would end with the promise of another call. That gap was where many visits died. The AI booking engine did not have to put people on hold to look around. It already had the rules for what slots were open, which areas went to which techs, and how many jobs could fit in a day. So when the conversation reached that point, it could offer real choices. It could say, in simple language, that there were a couple of time windows available and ask which one worked best. It could do the same thing over text or DM. When someone picked a slot, it did not stay as a note on a pad. It landed on the calendar in the right place with the key information attached. Fourth, there was confirmation. If you look at any week on a schedule, the jobs that matter most are not the ones that could happen. They are the ones that actually happen. Before, Northern Comfort sent reminders sometimes. Some days the staff had time to make calls the day before. Some weeks they did not. Text reminders were hit and miss. The engine made that routine. Once a visit was booked, it did not just sit there. The system would send a reminder before the appointment. For many homeowners, that was enough to stick it in their mind. Some people used that reminder to ask for a different day or time. In the old way of doing things, that might have meant another round of phone tag with the office. Now, the reschedule could be handled right there in the same channel. If someone replied to say, "Something came up, I cannot do this time," the engine could offer alternate windows based on the same rules and move the visit cleanly in the calendar without a staff member needing to jump in right away. By the time the tech looked at their schedule for the day, what they saw matched what homeowners were actually ready for. That steady chain of contact, qualification, booking, confirmation, and reschedule handling had a visible effect on show rates. Back when reminders were inconsistent, no-show visits were just part of the job. A tech would drive out to a house, knock, and nobody answered. Or the homeowner would call the office at the last minute to say they forgot and could not make it. Those empty slots were dead time that could not be filled easily. Once reminders and simple rescheduling became standard, more of the booked jobs turned into real visits. Carlos noticed that. He had reports that showed the completed job count. He could compare weeks before and after the engine went live. The number of people who were on the calendar might have gone up a bit, but the number of people that techs actually met in person went up more. You can think of it this way. If you talk to 100 people in a week and only a small slice ever pick a time, you are wasting effort. If you book a decent number but a big chunk never open the door, you are wasting drive time. An AI booking engine does not create demand from thin air. It makes more of the people you are already talking to actually move into booked, kept visits. For Summit Air and Heat, the shift showed up in smaller numbers, but with the same shape. Before, Mike might end a week with a calendar that looked fine on Monday, but felt empty by Friday. He would book jobs, lose some, add a few last minute, and always feel like he was chasing something. After the engine was in place and the flows had run for a bit, he noticed that more of the "we will call you back" situations were turning into clean bookings without extra effort from his staff. A homeowner would call during a busy stretch, leave the early part of the process to the engine, and then pick a time. The reminders went out. The reschedules were handled without crowding the phone lines. By the time the techs headed out, the odds that someone would be home and ready were better. From the office side, John at Precision Climate saw a different kind of relief. His staff no longer had to guard every single step in the path. They did not have to write down times on paper and then transfer them. They did not have to call people back just to see whether tomorrow afternoon might work. They did not have to remember who needed a reminder and who did not. The engine took care of the base work, and they could step in where human judgment was really needed. That might be when a job sounded complex. It might be when a homeowner had concerns that went beyond a simple booking. It might be when there was a question about pricing or scope. Instead of spending energy on routine back and forth, the team focused on the conversations that actually required their brains and experience. There is another benefit in treating the whole path as one connected line. You can see where things are breaking. When all you ever look at is how many jobs we did this week, you cannot tell whether your main leak is at initial contact, at booking, or at the show-up stage. Once an AI booking engine is in place, you can see how many contacts entered the system, how many of them turned into real conversations, how many of those conversations resulted in confirmed visits, and how many of those visits actually happened. If you notice that a lot of people talk to you but do not pick a time, you can adjust how the engine offers slots. If you see that many people book but then cancel or no-show, You can change your reminder timing or the way expectations are set. You are no longer guessing. You are looking at how people move from first touch all the way to finished job. For many owners, this is where working with someone who understands both HVAC and this style of system makes a big difference. The idea of the flow is simple when you say it out loud. Talk to people. Sort out who is a fit. Offer times. Confirm. Remind. Handle. Reschedules. In practice, there are many small details that decide whether the whole thing feels smooth or clunky. How early or late you offer time windows. How you handle boundary cases near the edge of your service area. How you structure availability for maintenance versus emergency calls. How firm or flexible your confirmation language is. You can figure all of that out on your own if you want to spend the time and energy testing it. Most owners do not. They would rather have someone come in who has already seen hundreds of these flows, knows the common patterns in HVAC, and can design a version that fits their shop faster. That is usually the point where this stops feeling like some tech project and starts feeling like a real operating system for turning conversations into booked, kept visits. If, as you read this, you can see places in your own business where conversations die before they hit the calendar, or booked jobs fall apart before a tech arrives, it might be worth talking with a specialist who lives in this world all day. If you want to see how this could look in your shop and move to a cleaner conversation to calendar flow without having to build it alone, you can set up a short call with our team here. https:/book-a-call-page. Chapter 7. The numbers that actually matter and how an AI engine improves them. Mike used to look at two numbers. He would sit at his desk at Summit Air and Heat at the end of the month, pull up the reports from his bookkeeper, and ask the same two questions. How much did we spend on ads? How much did we bring in? If the gap between those two numbers looked healthy, he relaxed. If it looked tight, he got nervous and started talking about turning off campaigns or trying a new lead source. He did not have much else to go on. Some weeks felt busy, but the bank account did not move the way he wanted. Other weeks felt calm, yet the revenue ended up better. It all felt random. When he first heard someone talk about tracking the chain from contact to revenue, he thought it sounded like marketing jargon. Then, he saw it written out on a whiteboard. Contacts, then conversations, then bookings, then show rate, and then revenue. 5 simple steps. Nothing technical. No software names. Just the path that every job has to walk before it turns into money in the bank. The person walking him through it said, "You are looking at the last number and the ad spend." That is like reading only the last page of a book. The real story is in the middle. They started at the left. Contacts. Contacts are any person who raises their hand. They call. They text. They fill out a form. They send a message on social. They are not leads, in theory. They are real people who reached out. Conversations. Conversations are contacts that actually got a response and engaged. Someone answered their call. Someone returned their text. Someone replied to their message. The person on the other end responded back at least once. Bookings. Bookings are conversations that turned into a real time slot on the calendar. There is a name, an address, a day, and a time window. It is not, "They said they will call back." It is a confirmed visit. Show rate. Show rate is the percentage of those booked visits that actually turn into completed jobs. The tech drives out. The homeowner opens the door. The work gets done or the estimate is delivered. Revenue. Revenue is the money that comes from those completed visits. Mike realized he had all 5 of these stages in his business. He just had never looked at them as a chain. Once he did, he started to see where the leaks really lived. Take a simple week. Suppose 100 people try to contact you. They call, they text, they fill forms, they send DMs. If only half of them ever become real conversations, that means 50 slipped away before anyone really engaged with them. If you then book only half of those conversations into actual time slots, that leaves you with 25 bookings. If only 3 out of 4 of those bookings show up, you end up with a bit under 20 real visits. Now imagine each of those visits averages $2,000 in revenue over time between the initial job and later work. That is maybe around $40,000 from that week. Now change the chain. You keep the same 100 contacts. If a better system means that 3 out of 4 contacts turn into real conversations instead of 1/2, now you have 75 conversations. If clear next steps and easy booking mean that 2 out of 3 of those conversations turn into scheduled visits, you have 50 bookings. If reminders and easy rescheduling raise your show rate so that 8 out of 10 visits happen instead of 3 out of 4, you now have 40 completed jobs. Same 100 people reaching out. Very different outcome. At the same $2,000 per visit over time, that is around $80,000. You have not bought more leads. You have not hired more techs. You have just fixed the middle of the chain. That is the point of this chapter. Once you can see each link, you can do something about it. The AI booking engine lives inside that chain. At Northern Comfort Heating and Air, Carlos asked his team to pull some simple numbers for a typical month before the engine was turned on. They looked at how many people had called, texted, filled out forms, or sent messages. They guessed that around half of those people ever reached a real conversation. Some never got a call back in time. Some hung up when put on hold. Some form submissions sat overnight and never got a reply while the homeowner was still in buying mode. From the conversations that did happen, the staff booked jobs in a loose way. Sometimes the person on the phone forgot to push for a time. Sometimes they said, "We will call you back with options." Sometimes they booked but forgot to check service area rules or tech workload. The show rate was fine on some days and painful on others. Cancellations came in on the same morning as the visit. No shows hit in the afternoon when techs were already on the road. Reminders were made when someone had time and skipped when the office was slammed. Once the AI booking engine was running and tuned for a bit, they looked at the same chain again. Contacts did not change much. The company was not buying extra ads yet. The phones did not suddenly ring from new places. The total count of people who tried to reach them stayed in the same range. Conversations jumped because the engine answered calls when lines were busy, followed up on form fills with automatic texts, and replied to DMs. More of those contacts actually reached a two-way interaction. People no longer sat waiting on a missed call hoping someone would try again. They got a text and replied. People who filled out a form late at night woke up to a message and could answer on their own time. Bookings jumped. Because the engine treated booking as the natural next step, a higher share of conversations ended with a concrete time slot. It did not wait for, "We will get back to you." It offered clear choices. Morning versus afternoon. This day or that day. The person on the other end picked a window that worked, and the engine dropped it onto the calendar according to rules the team had set. Show rates climbed. Because the engine always sent reminders and always gave a simple way to reschedule, more booked jobs turned into real visits. People did not forget. If something came up, they could reply and pick a new slot instead of vanishing. The revenue at the end of the chain started to reflect those shifts. Nothing here is magic. The AI booking engine does not change the laws of your market. What it does is push the percentages at each step in your favor. Higher contact to conversation percentage? Because everything gets a reply. Higher conversation to booking percentage? Because there is a clear and easy path to commit to a time. Higher show rate? Because reminders and reschedules are handled without friction. This is why looking only at ad spend and final revenue can be misleading. If all you see is, "We spent this much on ads and made this much," you might decide the ads do not work. In reality, the ads may be sending plenty of people your way. The problem might be that only a small slice ever get talked to, or that many interested people never get pushed toward a time, or that people who would buy never get a reminder and forget. Once you see the chain, you can decide what to improve. If your contact-to-conversation number is low, you know you have a speed and coverage problem. If your conversation-to-booking number is low, you know you have a clarity and call-to-action problem. If your show rate is low, you know you have a reminder and expectation problem. An AI booking engine is built to raise the floor on each link in that chain. It does not get tired of replying. It does not forget to send the reminder. It does not mean to follow up and then get pulled into another task. It runs in the background, keeping your numbers from sliding just because the office had a rough day. Mike saw the value of this when he finally had his own chain laid out. He asked a simple question every week. How many contacts did we have? How many turned into conversations? How many of those became bookings? How many of those bookings showed up? How much revenue came from them? He stopped asking only, how much did we spend on ads? He started asking, where did we lose people this week? When you see that pattern over time, you can spot changes early. If contacts drop, you know it is a lead flow issue and you can address marketing. If contacts stay steady but conversations drop, you can look at response time or coverage hours. If conversations stay steady but bookings fall, you can tweak how availability is offered and how firm the booking language is. If bookings stay steady but show rate drops, you can test different reminder timings or messages. You are no longer guessing in the dark. This way of thinking is also where working with someone who understands these flows can save a lot of trial and error. Designing a system that not only answers contacts, but also lifts the right numbers requires more than just flipping a switch on a tool. You have to decide how fast first responses should go out. You have to define what counts as a qualified contact for your specific shop. You have to set rules for booking by service type, by area, and by tech availability. You have to choose reminder timing that fits your market and your typical jobs. All of that is possible to figure out on your own. But it is also the type of work where experience across many HVAC shops pays off, because the patterns are similar even when the logos on the trucks are different. Once you start viewing your business through the chain of contacts, then conversations, then bookings, then show rate, and then revenue, you will not want to go back to the old way. The numbers stop being abstract. They tell you clearly whether your issue this month is top of funnel, middle of funnel, or last mile. They tell you whether your AI booking engine is doing its job well or needs to be tuned. They give you a way to see progress even before the final revenue number catches up. For an owner who has spent years reacting to whatever the bank account says at the end of the month, that shift alone is worth a lot. You go from hoping that things work out to running a system that you can actually adjust on purpose. Chapter 8: Why Most DIY Automations Break, and What a Robust System Really Requires. John sat at his desk at Precision Climate late on a Thursday afternoon. The phones had finally quieted down. Techs were back in the shop. The office felt tired. He opened his laptop and pulled up a document he had been poking at for weeks. At the top, he had written, Automation Plan. He was tired of feeling behind. He was tired of watching calls go to voicemail when the front desk was already on another line. He was tired of hearing that a form fill from the night before had just been called at 11 in the morning and the homeowner had already booked with someone else. So he decided to just set up some automations. He found a basic chatbot on the internet that promised to answer website visitors. He signed up for a texting tool that could send automatic replies to missed calls. He used a free calendar app with an online booking link. He connected everything loosely into the CRM they already had. On paper, it looked like a clever solution. The chatbot would greet website visitors and collect information. The texting tool would send messages when someone called and did not get an answer. The calendar link would let homeowners pick their own time. The CRM would store everything. For the first few days, it felt good. He saw a few website chats come in. He saw some missed callers receive a text. He saw a couple of bookings appear on the calendar from the online link. Then, the cracks started to show. One Friday afternoon, a tech showed up at a house that was outside their service area. The chatbot had booked it without checking zip codes the way his office staff normally did. On Monday, 2 different techs drove to the same neighborhood at the same time. The calendar had let 2 people book the same time slot. One of those jobs had been manually booked by the office staff. The other had come in through the online link. The systems did not talk to each other well enough. In the middle of the week, a homeowner called upset. They had been messaging with the texting system, thought they had booked, and took time off work. But the appointment never showed up on the main calendar. The conversation had stopped one step before the booking, and nobody noticed. Inside the office, the front desk felt more stressed, not less. They had messages coming from chat, texts from the automation, and notes in the CRM. Some leads appeared in all of those places at once. Some appeared in one place and never made it to the others. No one could say, with confidence, whether every contact had been handled. After a few weeks of this, John did what many people do in that situation. He turned most of it off. He kept the basic parts that seemed safe and went back to manual for the rest. The idea behind his plan was not bad. Catch more leads automatically. Answer faster. Let people book themselves. The problem was not the concept. The problem was how easy it is to create a fragile system when you try to piece everything together yourself. When a homeowner reaches out, there are many small steps between their first message and a tech standing at their door. Each of those steps has details that matter. If you leave those details to chance, the system will break in quiet ways. The first weak point is usually the messaging. Most do-it-yourself tools come with generic language. Hello, how can we help you today? Please choose from the following options. This pressed, thank you. Your request has been received. That might be fine for a basic website. For an HVAC company, it falls short. A real homeowner wants to know whether you handle their type of system. They want to know how soon someone can come out. They want to know if you serve their area. They also want to feel like they are talking to a specific company, not a random robot. If the messages do not sound like your brand, do not reflect your policies, and do not handle common questions in your market, people drop off. The second weak point is qualification. If your system does not clearly ask the right questions, you get the wrong jobs booked. You send texts to homes that are too far away. You book low-value jobs at peak times when you should be saving slots for better work. You schedule maintenance visits in the middle of the day when your team is slammed with emergency calls. Your staff knows these rules in their heads. They know which zip codes are too far. They know which jobs to push towards slower days. They know when to say, "We do not handle that type of work, but here is who you can call." Unless those rules are encoded into the system, your automation cannot make the same decisions. The third weak point is the calendar. It is easy to create a booking link. It is harder to make sure that link always respects reality. Real HVAC shops do not have a wide-open schedule where any time is fine. Techs have staggered shifts. Some techs can handle certain jobs and not others. Some days you hold back a few slots for same-day emergencies. If your automated system does not respect those patterns, it will book in ways that look fine on a screen, but cause chaos in real life. Double bookings, jobs slotted in tight windows that ignore drive time. Easy maintenance visits stacked, while urgent work gets pushed out too far. The fourth weak point is monitoring and tuning. When you do it yourself, it is common to set things up once and then move on. You rarely have time to sit and read through entire conversation histories. You rarely have time to ask, where did the AI confuse someone? Or, why did this person stop replying at this point? You are busy running the business. Without regular review, small problems never get fixed. A phrase that sounds confusing stays confusing. A reminder that goes out too early or too late keeps doing that. A certain type of lead keeps dropping off at the same step. Over weeks and months, that adds up to real money lost. John saw all of this the hard way. His first pass at automation made life more complex, not less. He had more tools, more logins, and more places where leads could get stuck. This is where the idea of a robust system is different from a basic string of tools. A robust AI-driven booking system is not just a few clever zaps between apps. It is the sum of many decisions made on purpose. First, you map out the flows. You decide what should happen when someone calls and no one can answer. You decide what should happen when someone fills out a form at 9 at night. You decide what should happen when someone sends a DM asking for a price. You decide what should happen when someone does not reply after the first message. You lay those paths out so you can see them clearly. Second, you encode your business rules. Which zip codes are inside your service area? Which services you want to promote the most? Which jobs you will not take during peak times? How long each type of visit usually takes? What days and times techs are available? Those rules need to be written in a way the system can honor, not just held in the heads of your staff. Third, you handle edge cases. What if a homeowner wants a visit outside normal hours? What if they live on the edge of your area? What if they ask for a quote over text and also mention that someone in the home works nights? What if they want to reschedule twice? You cannot predict every situation, but you can design for the common ones and give clear paths for the rest. Fourth, you review and optimize. You look at transcripts. You see where people seem confused. You look at times when people drop off. You notice when a certain reply keeps getting "no thanks" and change it. You adjust reminder timing based on no-show patterns. You treat the system like a member of your team that you train over time, not a gadget you plug in once. An AI booking engine lives in this more serious category. It is not just an add-on. It is the front door. It talks to more people than anyone else in your company. It has more chances to make or lose money than any ad you run. Because of that, it has to do more than connect a few pieces of software. It has to deliver a steady experience that matches how your business actually works. And it has to keep doing that during busy season, slow season, and everything in between. Carlos at Northern Comfort learned this when he started to grow into more locations. At one point, each location was using its own mix of tools. One shop had a basic chat widget. Another had a separate texting system. Another leaned heavily on phone calls only. From a distance, it looked like they were all doing automation. In reality, the homeowner experience depended on which phone number they called and which location answered. At one location, homeowners got fast responses and clear booking options. At another, they sat in voicemail limbo and never heard back. At a third, someone might eventually text them manually if the office staff remembered. Once Carlos saw how uneven that was, he pushed for a single, robust system that would handle contacts the same way across all locations. That move forced him to think through the details. He had to decide which services each location would offer and when. He had to decide how emergency calls would be handled in each area. He had to decide what messages would go out in the brand voice and how the system would introduce each location. The AI booking engine gave him the structure to do that. It sat in front of all locations in the same way. Calls, texts, and DMIS all flowed into one consistent set of rules. Calendar logic respected tech availability in each branch. Conversations felt like they came from one company, not a patchwork of tools. The result was not just more bookings. It was fewer internal fires. The office staff stopped worrying about whether the chatbot said the right thing. They stopped copying information from one tool to another. They stopped manually watching 3 different inboxes. They could trust that the engine was handling the simple conversations, and they focused on the exceptions. Most HVAC owners can absolutely set up basic automations. You can wire a form to send an email. You can create a simple text reply for missed calls. You can drop a calendar link on your site. The question is not whether you can do it. The question is whether you want to become a part-time systems architect on top of running your company. Designing, building, and maintaining a robust booking system is its own discipline. It pulls you into conversation design, operations design, data review, and constant tuning. If you enjoy that kind of work and have the time, you can go deep. Most owners do not. Most owners want the same outcome. They want every contact handled. They want clean bookings. They want techs to arrive at homes where people are actually waiting for them. They want to know that the system will keep doing that in the background while they focus on hiring, training, pricing, and leadership. That is why the typical do-it-yourself stack, built from whatever tools were easiest to sign up for, tends to break. It breaks at the edges. It breaks under pressure when call volume spikes. It breaks when someone updates a calendar rule and forgets to update all the linked tools. It breaks when no one has time to go back and see how real homeowners are actually experiencing it. A proper AI booking engine is built with those realities in mind from the start. It is designed to carry the weight of real daily volume. It is tuned around the actual needs of an HVAC business, not a generic service company. It has room to grow with more locations, more techs, and more campaigns feeding it. You do not need to know every detail of how that works under the hood. You only need to know that there is a difference between a quick, do-it-yourself automation and a system that you can rely on day after day. If you are at the point where you are tired of trying to glue tools together and you want a booking system that is mapped out, built, and tuned around your business instead of on top of it, it can help to sit down with someone who does this all the time and walk through what a clean version would look like for you. When you are ready to explore that and see how an AI booking engine could work in your shop, use this link to pick a time that fits your schedule. https://book-a-call-page, and we will walk you through what a robust, done-right setup could do for your calls, your calendar, and your peace of mind. Chapter 9. What it is like to work with an AI booking engine partner. By this point, you understand the idea. You have seen how missed calls, slow replies, and ignored messages turn into lost estimates. You have seen how an AI booking engine can stop those leaks and turn the demand you already generate into booked work. Now the real question is simple. Who is going to build, run, and keep that engine tuned? You have two options. You can try to piece together software on your own and become a part-time systems architect. Or you can work with a partner whose entire focus is designing and running AI booking systems for HVAC companies. This chapter is about what it actually looks like to work with a specialist partner like Innovative Bear, and why that path is usually the fastest, safest way to get to 20 to 100 more qualified estimates each month from the same lead flow. When most owners hear AI booking engine, they picture a tool, maybe a chatbot, maybe a calendar plugin. Tools are everywhere. You can buy a lot of them for a low monthly fee. The problem is that tools do not think. They do not know your service areas. They do not know which jobs you want, which jobs you do not want, and which ones you only want in certain seasons. They do not decide how to greet a homeowner who is hot, stressed, and just wants a straight answer. They do not fix weak reminders, poor routing, or broken workflows. A partner does. A partner brings structure, experience, and ownership to the problem of capturing and booking your demand. That is the core difference between buying software and installing a booking system with a specialist. When you work with Innovative Bear, you are not buying access to another dashboard. You are installing a front door for your business that has been designed, built, and tuned by people who do this all day, every day for HVAC. The process is clear and focused. In Phase 1, the strategy and build phase, we map how your business actually works right now. We look at where your calls, texts, and DMIs come from. We identify your main service areas and the ones you want to avoid. We clarify which services you want to prioritize and which ones are lower value. We learn your schedule patterns, peak seasons, and how you want to protect same-day or next-day slots. We turn all of that into clear rules and flows that an engine can follow. We design how the AI should greet callers, what questions matter most, and how to keep the experience simple for homeowners. We shape the language so it sounds like your company, in your market, not like a generic script. You do not need to sit inside a new platform and figure out where every button is. You stay in your role as owner or operator. You provide input and feedback. We take responsibility for the build. In Phase 2, the launch and early wins phase, the engine goes live in a controlled and strategic way. Calls that you used to miss are now answered. Form fills that used to sit for hours get a quick text back. DMIs that used to go unanswered now get a direct, clear response that guides people into choosing a time. This is where you start to see the first obvious changes. The voicemail pile shrinks. The "I never heard back from you" complaints drop. You start seeing more booked estimates on the calendar, even though you did not change your ad spend or your basic lead flow. During this phase, we are watching closely. We review real conversations. We look for any points where homeowners get stuck or confused. We adjust messages, questions, and flows based on what actually happens, not what looks good on a whiteboard. We support your team as they get used to the new normal. Your staff still see what is happening, but instead of scrambling to respond to every contact, they focus on exceptions and high-value issues that need a human. In Phase 3, the optimization and scale phase, the engine is already working. Now the goal is to sharpen it and expand it. We adjust reminder timing to lift show rates. We refine qualification rules to cut down on low-value jobs and keep your techs focused on profitable work. We increase the number of contacts the engine can handle at the same time as your volume grows. If you add techs, new services, or new locations, we update the system so the booking engine supports that growth instead of blocking it. Over time, this is where you feel the biggest difference. Your booked work becomes more predictable. Your revenue becomes less random. Your team spends less time fighting the phones and more time supporting techs and customers. The system becomes part of how you do business, not a fragile experiment you are always worried will break. The reason this process works is simple. We are not guessing. We have already seen what happens inside many HVAC companies. When demand goes up, staff get stretched, and phones are not handled in a structured way. We understand the common failure points that break most do-it-yourself automations. Service area rules that are not enforced, so techs get sent out of bounds. Emergency calls that get treated like routine maintenance, or the other way around. Calendars that are not synced properly, leading to double bookings or gaps. Generic scripts that do not match how homeowners in your market actually talk or what they actually care about. Weak follow-up that does not protect show rates. We build your engine with those patterns in mind from day one. We also know what matters to you as an owner. You care about actual booked estimates and closed jobs, not vanity metrics. You care about your team, not burning out. You care about keeping your reputation strong. You care about being able to look at your numbers and see, in plain language, how many contacts came in, how many turned into conversations, how many became bookings, and how many of those led to real revenue. Our role is to design a system that supports those outcomes, and then keep it tuned as your business and your market change. Could you piece something together on your own? Yes, you could buy a chatbot, a texting platform, a calendar app, and a CRM, and try to wire them together. You could spend nights and weekends watching tutorials and guessing at what rules to set. You could learn by trial and error. The cost of that path is not just your time. The real cost is the missed opportunities while you are learning. Every week you spend experimenting is a week where calls are still going to voicemail, form fills are still delayed, and DMIs are still ignored. Most owners who start down that road either give up and go back to manual, or end up hiring someone later to fix a broken setup that was never designed properly in the first place. When you work with Innovative Bear, you skip that entire cycle. You move straight to a designed, tested process that has already worked in shops at your level and above. You get a clear plan. You get a focused build. You get ongoing optimization, so your booking system does not fall behind as volume and behavior change. The simple truth is this. If you are reading this, you already see that your main problem is not a lack of leads. It is a lack of structure around how those leads are captured and turned into booked work. You can keep living with that and accept the wasted demand as a cost of doing business. Or you can decide that it is time to install a system that treats every call, text, and message as an asset and gives each one a real chance to turn into revenue. If you want to move faster and have this done with you instead of trying to figure it out alone, the next step is straightforward. Schedule a short call with our team. Walk us through how your business works today, and we will show you what an AI booking engine tailored to your HVAC company could look like, and what 20 to 100 more qualified estimates each month would mean for your revenue and your stress levels. Use this link to choose a time that fits you. https://book-a-call-page, and we will help you decide whether partnering with us to build and run your booking engine is the right move for where you are right now. Chapter 10. The next 90 days. your HVAC business on an AI booking engine. By now, you know the main idea. Your business does not need endless new campaigns. It needs a clean way to catch and book the demand you already create. The question in front of you is simple. What will the next 90 days look like if you keep doing what you are doing now? And what could they look like if you install a real AI booking engine with a specialist? This chapter is direct. No stories. Just what changes, what stays the same, and what to do if you want help. Over the next 90 days, 3 parts of your business either stay stuck or change. First, how every call, text, and message is handled. Right now, you probably accept a certain level of chaos. Some calls go to voicemail. Some form fills sit in an inbox until the next day. Some DMIs never get answered. On a busy day, you know you are missing people, but you do not know exactly how many. You just move on. With an AI booking engine in place, every contact gets an answer. Calls are picked up, even when your staff is tied up. Form fills get a quick text. DMIs get a response that gives clear next steps. The engine follows the rules you set. It does not get tired, stressed, or distracted. That does not mean humans leave the picture. It means the routine, simple first contact is handled the same way every time. Second, what lands on your calendar and how reliable it feels. In your current setup, you may see days where your calendar looks full, but you are not sure how much will actually show. You might also see days where you know there were calls and messages, but your board does not reflect that. It feels like guesswork. With a tuned booking engine, more of your real demand turns into actual booked estimates, and more of those estimates hold. People get confirmations. They get reminders. They have an easy way to reschedule instead of disappearing. Over a 90-day period, that shift shows up as more completed estimates without needing to double or triple your lead volume. Third, your role as the owner or operator. If you stay on your current path, you will keep carrying the same mental load. You will still wonder how many opportunities you lost each day because phones were busy or someone forgot to reply. You will still feel like you have to be half owner and half dispatcher. With a real system in place, that starts to change. You still watch your numbers. You still talk with your team, but you are no longer trying to manually plug every leak. You are managing a process instead of chasing problems. Behind those 3 areas is a simple way of looking at your business. You have contacts. Those contacts either turn into conversations or they do not. You have conversations. Those conversations either turn into bookings or they do not. You have bookings. Those bookings either show up or they do not. Over the next 90 days, you can keep guessing where the drop-offs are, or you can decide that you want clear visibility into that chain and a system built to improve each step. Here is the philosophy behind the AI booking engine approach. Most HVAC companies do not have a lead problem. They have a capture and booking problem. They spend money on ads. They build their brand. They get word of mouth. They show up in search. The market already knows they exist. The real leaks happen after the phone rings, after the form is filled, after the message is sent. When you tighten that back end, your existing marketing becomes more profitable. You do not have to increase ad spend to see more booked work. You just stop wasting the demand you already have. That is why an AI booking engine is not a tech toy. It is not another gadget for your staff to ignore. It is a revenue capture system. It is the way new demand walks through the front door of your business. So why move now? Because every week you wait, the same pattern repeats. Calls go to voicemail. Messages sit. People move on. And book with whoever answered first and made it easy. You do not get a clear report that says, here are the 10 jobs you lost this week because no one replied within a few minutes. You just see softer revenue than you know is possible and a team that feels stretched. There are only 2 real paths from here. Path A is to keep things as they are. You stay dependent on human bandwidth. You keep hearing, sorry, we tried to call them back, but they already booked somewhere else. You keep watching your staff juggle phones, walk-ins, and tech questions at the same time. Some days, you win despite the gaps. Some days, you do not. Path B is to install a booking system that works every day across calls, texts, and messages. Whether your office is calm or slammed, you still have humans in the loop. You still control your rules. But you are no longer gambling your booked work on whether someone can pick up the phone at the exact right second. Path A has a hidden cost. You do not see a line item for lost opportunities, but the cost is there in jobs that never reach your schedule. Path B has a clear cost and a clear upside. You invest in a system and a partner, and you capture more of the demand you are already paying to generate. If you want to move forward with Path B and not spend the next 90 days trying to piece it together alone, here is what happens when you book a call with us. You click the link and pick a time that works for you. The call is with a specialist who understands HVAC, not a generic software salesperson. On that call, you walk us through your current picture. You share your team size, your service areas, how you get leads now, what your busy seasons look like, and where you feel the biggest leaks. We help you estimate what 20 to 100 more qualified estimates each month would actually mean for your business. Not in vague hype, but in simple terms. More booked jobs without matching that increase in ad spend. We look together at your phones, your texts, and your messages, and point out the obvious leaks first. Often, there are simple places where the lack of structure is costing you every week. We then help you decide whether now is the right time to install an AI booking engine and whether we are the right partner to build and run it with you. There is no pressure to move forward if it does not make sense. The goal of that first call is clarity first, decision second. If you decide to work with us, we move into the process you just read about in the last chapter. We design your system, launch it in a controlled way, and then tune it over time so it matches your growth. If you decide not to move forward, you still leave the call with a clearer view of your leaks and what it would take to fix them. Your HVAC business does not have to run on guesswork and constant urgency. With the right booking engine and the right partner, it can run on clear numbers, steady demand capture, and a calmer team. If you are ready to see what that could look like in your own shop, and you want help doing it faster and at a higher level instead of figuring it out on your own, schedule a call with our team. Use this link to pick a time that fits your schedule, and we will walk you through what an AI booking engine tailored to your business would look like, what it would take to install, and what kind of lift in booked estimates is realistic for you. https://secured.innovativebear.com/book-a-call-page